When I walked into my studio at 3 o'clock on a Tuesday afternoon in late September, my 3 nephews, their wives, and a man I'd never seen before were standing around my work table with folders in their hands. My youngest nephew, Marcus, looked up first, and I saw something in his expression I'd never seen before. Not love, not warmth, calculation. "Aunt Sarah," he said, "we need to talk." I had just returned from dropping off 6 paintings at the Monterey Art Gallery, where my solo exhibition was opening that weekend. I was 58 years old. I had been teaching high school art for 32 years before I retired 3 years ago to paint full-time. My work had been featured in galleries from San Francisco to Seattle. Last year alone, I'd sold enough paintings to bring in over $150,000, and that wasn't counting the teaching income from the workshops I ran twice a month. I set down my bag slowly. "What's going on? Is someone hurt?" "No one's hurt," my oldest nephew, Daniel, said. "But we're worried about you. We've all been talking, and we think you need help." I looked around my studio, the north-facing windows letting in perfect light, the canvases stacked against the walls. The painting I'd been working on for 3 weeks, a seascape in blues and grays that was almost finished. The man I didn't know was writing something down. "Help with what?" I asked. Daniel gestured to the man. "This is Dr. Kevin Morrison. He's a geriatric psychiatrist, and we asked him to come evaluate you." My heart started beating faster. "Evaluate me for what?" The youngest one's wife, Brittany, spoke up. Her voice had that same false sweetness I'd learned to recognize over the past few years. "Sarah, you have to understand, we love you, but you've been showing signs. Concerning signs." I stared at her. I'd paid for her wedding 3 years ago, $15,000 for a ceremony at a winery because Marcus couldn't afford it. "What signs?" I asked. "You're obsessed with painting," Marcus said. "You spend all day in here. You've stopped going to church. You gave away $30,000 to that art scholarship last month." "I gave away my own money to help students who can't afford art school," I said. "I've been doing that for 2 years. You all knew about it." "But that's a lot of money," Daniel's wife Jessica said. "Don't you think that's excessive? What if you need that money later?" I looked at the papers in their hands. Even from where I stood, I could see legal letterhead. "What are those?" "It's just a power of attorney," Daniel said, "and some paperwork to help us manage your finances. You have this house worth almost $2 million, the art collection, the gallery income. It's too much for one person to handle alone." I had bought this house in Carmel 30 years ago, back when I could still afford it on a teacher's salary. I'd watched it appreciate to nearly $2.2 million. I had over 200 paintings in my collection, some worth tens of thousands of dollars each. I'd been careful, smart, disciplined with money my entire life. "I manage everything perfectly well," I said. "Do you?" Marcus stepped forward. "Aunt Sarah, you called me last week asking about your computer password. You forgot it." That was a lie. I had called him to ask if he knew why my email wasn't syncing to my phone. Once, but he was saying it like I'd called multiple times, like I was confused. "And you missed Thanksgiving last year," Brittany added. "I was in New Mexico for an art residency," I said. "I told all of you about it months in advance." The psychiatrist, Dr. Morrison, was still writing. I felt cold spreading through my chest. "What exactly are you documenting?" I asked him. "Just observations," he said smoothly. "Your nephews contacted me 3 weeks ago with concerns about your cognitive function and decision-making capacity." 3 weeks ago. They'd been planning this for 3 weeks. "I don't need a cognitive evaluation," I said. "I'm 58 years old, I teach art workshops, I run a successful painting practice, and I manage all my own affairs." "Sarah," Daniel said, and he used the same tone he'd used when he was 7 years old and wanted something from me. "We're only trying to help. After Mom died, you raised us. You put us through college. You've done so much for us. Now it's our turn to help you." My sister had died in a car accident 16 years ago. Daniel was 20 at the time, Marcus was 17, and the middle one, James, who was standing silent by the window, had been 18. I'd taken them in. I'd used my savings to pay for their college. I'd been there for every graduation, every wedding, every crisis. "I don't need help," I said quietly. "I need all of you to leave my house." Now, the room went silent. Then Dr. Morrison spoke. Mrs. Chen, this reaction is actually one of the warning signs we discussed. Paranoia, defensive behavior, hostility toward family members who are trying to help. I'm not Mrs. Chen anymore, I said. I kept my ex-husband's name after the divorce because I'd already built my teaching career with it. But I don't appreciate being called by his name in my own home. You can call me Miss Chen or Sarah. See? Brittany said to the others. She's not even thinking clearly. I walked to the door and opened it. Get out, all of you. Sarah. James spoke for the first time. His voice was quiet. We're not trying to hurt you. We just want to make sure you're taken care of. I looked at him. James, the one who'd been closest to his mother, the one I'd sat with in the hospital when his wife had their first baby, the one who'd come to me crying when he lost his job 2 years ago. Did you know about this? I asked him. He looked at his feet. We all agreed it was the right thing to do. Get out of my house, I said again. This time my voice was louder, not yelling, but firm, the voice I'd used in my classroom when students pushed too far. They didn't move. Daniel looked at Dr. Morrison. Do you have enough for your evaluation? Daniel asked. Dr. Morrison nodded. I have sufficient observations for a preliminary report. They filed out slowly. Marcus looked back at me from the doorway. We're doing this because we love you, he said. I closed the door without answering. I stood there for a moment, listening to their cars start, listening to them drive away. Then I went upstairs to my bedroom and locked the door. I didn't cry. I hadn't cried since my sister's funeral 16 years ago. I hadn't cried through my divorce, through the year I spent working 3 jobs to help put the boys through college, through the lawsuit when a parent accused me of giving their child an unfair grade. I didn't cry now. Instead, I opened my laptop. I opened the folder I'd created 4 months ago, the one I'd titled Beach Paintings 2025, but that actually contained something much more important. 4 months ago, I'd noticed that someone had tried to access my bank account from an IP address in San Jose. That was where Daniel lived. I'd immediately changed all my passwords and set up 2-factor authentication. Then I'd started paying attention. I'd noticed that Marcus had been asking me casual questions about whether I'd updated my will. I'd noticed that Brittany had started suggesting I get a checkup with a neurologist, just to be safe. I'd noticed that Daniel had asked if I'd ever considered what would happen to my art collection if something happened to me. I'm an artist. I observe things. I notice details. I see patterns. So I'd started documenting. I'd installed security cameras in my home. Small ones, professional ones, in the common areas. California is a 2-party consent state, but there are exceptions for your own home when you suspect criminal activity. I'd researched carefully. I'd consulted with a lawyer. I had recordings of every conversation. I had screenshots of every text message. I had copies of every time Daniel had accessed my laptop when he thought I was in the shower. I also had screenshots of his search history on my computer, how to get power of attorney for elderly relative, signs of dementia in middle-aged women, how to prove someone is incompetent to manage finances. And I'd done something else, something none of them knew about. 8 weeks ago, I'd moved my most valuable paintings, about 40 pieces worth over $600,000 total, to a secure art storage facility in San Francisco. I'd updated my insurance and documentation. The paintings were safe. I'd also moved most of my liquid assets into an irrevocable trust with an independent trustee, a lawyer named Patricia Winters who'd been my friend for 20 years. The house was already in an LLC I'd set up when I retired. On paper, in my accessible checking accounts, I had about $35,000. Everything else was protected. I'd updated my will too. Everything would go to the Sarah Mitchell Arts Foundation, a nonprofit I'd quietly established 6 months ago. It would fund scholarships for low-income students pursuing art education. Not $1 for Daniel, for Marcus, for James, or for any of their families who had just stood in my studio and tried to have me declared incompetent. The next morning, I woke up to 52 missed calls, most from Daniel, some from Marcus, a few from James, 2 from Brittany. I blocked all their numbers. Then I called Patricia. "Sarah," she said when she answered, "I was hoping you'd call. I got some very interesting documents yesterday. Your nephews are filing for conservatorship." I'd expected it, but hearing it still hurt. "On what grounds?" They have a preliminary psychiatric evaluation from Dr. Morrison stating you show signs of artistic mania, poor financial judgment, and social withdrawal. They also have sworn statements from all 3 nephews describing incidents of forgetfulness and irrational behavior. Dr. Morrison evaluated me for approximately 7 minutes while I stood in my own studio, I said, and I've never met him before yesterday. I know, Patricia said. I already looked him up. He's Jessica's uncle, Daniel's wife's uncle. Of course he was. What do? We fight, Patricia said. And Sarah, based on everything you've sent me over the past 4 months, we're going to win. The hearing was set for 3 weeks later. In those 3 weeks, I did not speak to my nephews. I did not answer any calls from numbers I didn't recognize. I did not open the door when Marcus showed up at my house twice. I just kept living my life. I went to my gallery opening. 7 paintings sold that night, bringing in $42,000. I taught my regular workshop to 15 students. I had coffee with my friend Margaret, who'd taught chemistry at the same high school for 30 years. I painted for 4 hours every day. I also met with a private investigator Patricia recommended. His name was Robert Torres, and within 10 days, he'd found some very interesting information. Daniel and Jessica had taken out a home equity line of credit 6 months ago. They were $45,000 in credit card debt. Jessica's online boutique, the one I'd given her $20,000 to start 2 years ago, was failing. Marcus and Brittany were in worse shape. Marcus had lost his job at the tech company 4 months ago and hadn't told anyone. They were 3 months behind on their mortgage. Brittany's catering business had folded. James and his wife Amy were struggling too. They had 3 kids in private school at $15,000 each per year. Amy's salary as a nurse wasn't enough. They'd been borrowing money from Daniel. None of them had stable finances. And they all knew about my assets because I'd been foolish enough to be transparent with them. I'd told them about the gallery sales, the art collection, the house value, thinking they'd be proud of me. They weren't worried about my mental health. They were worried about their bank accounts. The day of the hearing, I wore a navy silk blouse and tailored gray pants. Professional but artistic. I brought 3 large folders. My medical records showing perfect cognitive function. My financial records proving I managed everything meticulously. And my gallery sales data for the past 3 years. Patricia had prepared a presentation with video evidence, documentation of the attempted account access, proof that Dr. Morrison's evaluation was based on a 7-minute observation and family bias. I also had something they didn't expect. I had 3 witnesses. Margaret, my teaching colleague, ready to testify about my mental sharpness. My gallery owner, Linda Wu, prepared to confirm my professional success and business acumen. And my accountant, ready to show my excellent financial management. But the most important thing I had was the recordings. When the judge asked if I wanted to present evidence, Patricia stood up. "Your Honor," she said, "I'd like to show you something." She played the video from my studio. The one where Brittany said, "What if you need that money later?" The one where Daniel discussed getting power of attorney to help manage my assets. The one where Marcus talked about my house being worth almost $2 million with this specific emphasis on the number. Then she played audio from a conversation I'd recorded 3 months ago when I'd accidentally left my phone recording during Sunday dinner. Daniel's voice. "Once we have conservatorship, we can sell some of the paintings. That collection is worth at least $800,000. Marcus, we'd have to be careful. We can't just liquidate everything immediately. James, quiet but present. Mom would have wanted us to take care of Aunt Sarah. This is what's best." I watched their faces as the recordings played. Daniel went pale. Jessica started crying quietly. Marcus stared at the table. James closed his eyes. When it was over, the judge removed her glasses. "Miss Chen," she said, "I'm dismissing this petition immediately. Furthermore, I'm referring this matter to the district attorney's office for investigation of attempted financial exploitation of an elder, conspiracy to commit fraud, and making false statements in a legal proceeding." She looked at Dr. Morrison. "Doctor, you'll be hearing from the California Board of Psychology about your evaluation methods and potential conflicts of interest." Dr. Morrison's face went red, but he said nothing. 2 weeks later, Daniel and Jessica were charged with attempted financial exploitation and conspiracy. The DA was particularly interested in the false psychiatric evaluation and the fake reports of cognitive decline. Marcus and Brittany were charged as accomplices. James, because he'd participated less actively and because his lawyer argued he'd been pressured by his brothers, received a lighter charge. Dr. Morrison lost his license after an investigation revealed this wasn't his first biased evaluation for family members. My nephews called me from jail. I didn't answer any of the calls. Daniel left a voicemail. "Aunt Sarah, I'm sorry. I never meant for it to go this far. Jessica was the one who pushed for everything. Please, you raised me. I'm like your son." I deleted it without listening to all the way through. Brittany sent me a letter. She said she was pregnant. She said my future great-nephew deserved to have me in his life. She said I was destroying our family over money, that families should forgive each other. I sent the letter to Patricia. The private investigator confirmed. Brittany wasn't pregnant. It was another manipulation. James came to my house one evening. I saw him through the camera but didn't open the door. He sat on my porch steps for an hour before he finally left. He left a note. "Aunt Sarah, I know I don't deserve forgiveness, but I want you to know that I never wanted this. I was scared of Daniel. I was scared of losing my house. I made a terrible choice. I understand if you can't forgive me. But please know that Mom would be ashamed of what we did to you. I'm ashamed too. James." I kept the note. I didn't respond. Now, 6 months later, I'm sitting in my studio with morning light coming through the north windows. I have a new routine. I paint every morning for 3 hours. I teach my workshops twice a month. I have dinner with Margaret every Tuesday. I've joined a plein air painting group that meets on Saturdays. I also expanded the Sarah Mitchell Arts Foundation. We now provide full scholarships to 10 students per year, covering tuition, supplies, and living expenses for their undergraduate art education. We've also started a mentorship program pairing young artists with established professionals. I sleep well at night, better than I have in years. People ask me if I'm lonely. They ask if I miss my nephews. They look at me with pity, this 58-year-old woman with no family at holidays, no nephews visiting to show off their children. But I'm not lonely. I have friends who value me. I have students who learn from me. I have a studio that's mine, paintings that are mine, a life I built with my own vision, and no one can take that from me now. Daniel got 18 months. He'll be out in a year with good behavior. Jessica got probation and community service. Marcus got 16 months. Brittany got probation. James got 6 months and extensive community service. Dr. Morrison is working at a coffee shop now. I got my life back. I got my dignity back. I got proof that trusting my instincts was exactly right. I was never the problem. I was never incompetent, never paranoid, never irrational. I was a woman who'd built something valuable, and they saw me as an easy target. They thought I'd be easy to manipulate because I'd loved them. They thought I'd be vulnerable because I was unmarried, because I lived alone, because I was just an artist. They were wrong. I spent 32 years teaching teenagers how to see the world differently, how to notice details, how to create beauty from nothing. I should have known that some people can't see beauty. They can only see value in dollars. And sometimes the kindest thing you can do for yourself is to cut out the false colors and let the true painting emerge. I'm painting now. My next series is called Reclamation. It's about women who rebuild their lives after betrayal. The first painting is nearly finished. A woman, standing in a studio full of light, surrounded by her work, completely alone and completely whole. I'm healing, and I'm finally painting my truth.